It's windy, there's some quite nice waves breaking. I'm trying to find some compositions to make use of that, and let's see what happens. I hope you'll enjoy the video. If you do and you're not already a subscriber, please consider hitting subscribe, and if you are a subscriber, thank you very much, I appreciate that. Let's get on with it, shall we? Hi everyone, thank you for joining me. Today's video is about, well, it's about whatever it ends up being about, because I didn't really have much of a plan when I came out this afternoon other than to come out and take some pictures, and that's what I'm doing. I've come out onto the coastal paths, started off on top of the cliffs. I've worked my way down nearer to the sea, just looking for potential compositions. Today is windy, not as windy as it was the other evening when I was out, but it's windy, and the good thing about that is it means we're getting some quite nice waves breaking in on the rocks down here. The bad news is that it's actually quite tricky to get to any of those rocks. Some of the little paths that you can sometimes follow to get down to some of those rocky areas are currently, you know, awash with waves, so I'm having to kind of pick the compositions that I can. I've actually got one set up here already, which I'm going to take, and it's one of those ones where I'm going to be trying to time it for the waves, but I've got some other considerations in here, so I'll talk you through the composition and the setup. Okay, let's talk about the composition. Okay, so I've ducked down a little bit behind a wall, so hopefully you can hear me. My composition is using like a channel in the rocks that goes out. Now I can't get down to the level of the channel, it's just not possible. So I'm shooting it from, I don't know, maybe 20 feet, 15 feet above it. And right on the edge of the rock near it, right in front of my camera, is this sort of shrub with these yellow leaves on, or yellow, they're not really leaves, I don't know what they are, almost like little yellow flowers. And I've got that in the bottom right hand corner of the frame, and then the channel kind of curves out from next to that and around, heading out towards the sea. Over on the left hand side of the frame there's a big sort of rocky slope that comes down into the water, and the waves are smashing into the bottom of that rocky slope. Out in the distance on the horizon is Peacock Island, or Benidorm Island, and then there's some sort of okay-ish clouds. I'm just taking loads of shots of the waves breaking. So the intention with this is that I want to have a reasonably fast but not too fast exposure on the waves, and at the moment I've gone f16 with the ISO down on the low 1 setting, and I've got a circular polarizer on. I've got a cable release on so I can time my shots for as the waves are breaking, and I'm shooting in high-speed continuous mode, so burst mode, so capturing lots and lots of shots as the waves are coming in, so I can pick the best one, or possibly the best ones, because I might choose to use, you know, one set of waves breaking out on the end of the land and one breaking a bit further in, if that's the way it works, you know, if that's what looks the best. But in addition, I've also got to factor in this little shrub with the yellow flowers on in the foreground, and I don't want that to be blurry. So what I've actually done is I took a separate shot of that at ISO 400 f8 and I think 1/250th of a second. That should be enough to freeze that, I would hope. So I'll definitely be blending that in. I would have to focus stack this anyway, because that shrub is pretty close to the lens. I'm not entirely sure this is working, but it might be nice. We shall see. Got another composition set up here. I've got no idea if you can hear me or not. I'm on this little rocky bit here, looking out across the scene, 16mm landscape format, rocks in the foreground and to the side. I've taken some shots of the rocks in the foreground, focused on the rocks in the foreground. Now I'm focused out on the end, again just capturing waves breaking. Circular polarizer, f16, ISO on the low one setting, and 1/3 of a second. 1/3 of a second should be enough to get some movement in the waves but still keep texture. So sometimes to get the shot that you want, you end up putting yourself in positions that look as if they could be dangerous, but you know, if you're like me, you evaluate them carefully and you take every precaution and you move really carefully and you brace yourself so that you don't end up having an accident. And it's perfectly possible to get into some of these places safely so long as you're careful. The danger is once you come away from that place and you're on to normal terrain, that you kind of relax a little bit, and that's when the potential for accidents happens. And as I was climbing back up from that bit up sort of onto the cliff path, as I crested the hill, the wind came across, hit me. I kind of stepped a little bit to one side, stepped on some loose rocks, and had a little bit of a fall, so I've got some cuts on my arm and on my thumb, and I've also got one bit of a graze on my leg. Nothing serious, but that's how easy it is when you know you're in a sort of a bit of a tricky position where you've got to be careful. It's actually probably the safest time because you are being really careful. It's when you relax afterwards that you get careless, and that's what happened with me. It's my own stupid fault, and I will be in trouble when I get home. I'm going to wash these off with some water now. Bit of antiseptic cream when I get home, I think. Okay, I've come off of the cliff top and then I'm down on the beach at the end of that cliff area, and we've got about 10-12 minutes until official sunset, but the sun's already dropped behind some hills over that way. But what I'm waiting to see is if we get some light in the sky as the sun goes down. I've got an unusual composition here because there's a lot of buildings and other things around here. I'm trying something a little bit different. What I'm aiming for is to have the bottom corner of the scene waves coming in, and then right out on the horizon almost there's a little bit of land sticks out, and it's got some trees on it, some bushes and a couple of palm trees on the end. And there is actually some people out there as well, and that's where hopefully we might get some colour in the sky. So I've got a portrait orientation 70 to 200 lens on at, I think probably about 95 to 100 mil. I'm going to have to focus stack this, so what I'm going to do is focus on the foreground where the waves are and get a few shots of waves breaking, and then focus out on the trees in the background and try and get you know, a decent focus on that, so that if the sky lights up we get some nice tones in the sky and maybe some nice silhouettes of the trees. Yeah, I wasn't loving that composition, it wasn't working for me. So I've come further along the beach and I've set the camera up low down to try to take out some of the sea. And then what I'm doing is I'm taking several shots as the waves are coming in, focused on the foreground, and then every so often just focusing out on the trees and taking a shot there. I don't know, it might work. Just tried out another composition. I've come even further along the beach, less focused on the foreground, more on that gorgeous sky, which is looking really nice, beautiful textures. It's quite yellowy orange rather than red, but it's going a bit redder even as I'm speaking. Actually toying with the idea of going wide angle, but as gorgeous as the sky is, I just can't get a wide angle composition that works for me because there's just too much going on here. There's too many buildings and trees and other things. Okay, that's it, the light's gone now, and I said when I started I didn't know what this video was about, and I'm still not sure. I'll have to make up my mind when I get home. Anyway, whatever it's about, I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please consider giving it a like, sharing it on social media, leave me a comment, I'd love to hear from you. And of course, if you're not already a subscriber, please consider hitting subscribe. And as always, I really appreciate you taking the time to watch. So, thank you very much, and until the next video, bye.